During this demonstration, I'm going to show you how to program the CAM functions for pockets with islands. This is the first of a couple of different ways to do it. You also have pockets with no islands, which we're going to cover in a little bit different demo. So for this one, pockets with islands, I've purposefully left out a specific geometry. So I've got two shapes here, kind of a weird, almost trapezoidal looking look. So just a regular kind of rectangle that's not parallel. It doesn't have any parallel lines. And then we have a circle. The one thing I always like to check is I go up to Setup and Display. And when I do that, there's a grid setting here. And if I check that grid setting, I can change this to 0.25. And then when I click OK, if you watch carefully, there's little dots that show up. And these dots are actually 0.25 or a quarter inch away from each other. And the reason that's important is in the CNC mill in this lab, we typically use an 1/8 inch end mill. And when you use an 1/8 inch end mill, you have to make sure that you have that clearance. So the 1/8 inch end mill, if I zoom in here, is going to, let's zoom back out here, a little too tight on that. The 1/8 inch end mill is half of the quarter inch. So as you can see, this is a quarter inch from this dot to this dot. I've got plenty of room to pass through there. Let's say these were a lot closer together. If they were less than 1/8 of an inch, I couldn't get physically couldn't get the end mill in through that area, so that wouldn't work at all. I'd have to separate these two with a wider space. So I'm going to show you how to pocket mill with islands. So in essence, we're going to treat these as islands. So they're going to actually be sticking up out of the piece. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to first go back to my CAD drawing, which is this function right here. We're going to select polyline, and I'm going to draw outside just by a little bit a polyline. And I'm just going to keep it as close to a good right angle type rectangle as I can. Right click search point so I make sure it's connected. And then we've got that nice rectangle. Okay, so that forms what we call our outer contour. And what that's going to do is we're going to make this machine mill out all of the material around our two geometries. Okay, and this is how we're going to do it. So I go into my CAM function. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go up to Tool Library, and I'm going to make sure I load up the tool. Now this has already been loaded up into the tool holder. Let's assume it hadn't been. This is how it would look. It would say T1 empty. Excuse me, T1 empty. I make sure I select my 1/8 inch end mill, which is tool number 1 in this case. I make sure T1 is selected, and then I click on this little hand. And there you see that tool 1 now holds the 1/8 end mill. 1/8 inch end mill. Now my machine here in the lab is already set up for that, so I don't have to worry about the physical setup. I've already done that for you, or you don't have to worry, I should say. So I click OK, and now the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to click on my change tool, which is right over here on the side. When I do that, you can see T1 has the 1/8 inch end mill. I select that and I click OK. And if you notice, this little tool popped up right here. That is actually the top view of my end mill. That's the exact size of it. Now over here on the left side is the XZ plane. I want you to notice something. If I just make a quick change here, I can't see that XZ plane because the XY plane is taking over the entire screen. All I need to do to correct that is to hit the Restore Down button. I drop it down like that, and you can see that I have two windows going. So you can resize those. You can zoom in and out. So if this window's active, I go 1-to-1 over here. It zooms out. I can zoom in with a little zoom in tool. You should know that from the CAD demonstration. So there you have it. And you can see my tool here. Now I don't want the tool to be in contact with the part or the workpiece when I start. So the way I fix that is I go up here to the menu, the machining menu. So I click on machining over here, and I'm going to click on the rapid motion in plane. Look down here and you can see it's gone right now, but when I mouse over that, you're going to see the different selections come up, and I want, or the different explanations of what each tool does. So I want the rapid motion in plane. I click on that, and then I'm going to go over to the XZ plane, and I'm going to click once up like that. So it's going to bring it about an inch above the work plane, or the workpiece, I should say. Now I'm going to go over here, and I'm going to turn on my spindle. So I click on the periphery button. I click on turn spindle on to the right. And while I'm doing that, by the way, if I go to my editor here, it's actually creating the code for me. All right, it's a lot better than typing it all in. Okay, so I close that window, and now I'm ready to machine. So I click on the machining function, and you see the menu or the machining menu, all the different functions come up, and I want the one on the far left, which is pocket milling with items. Again, if you look down here, it's going to show you what that is. I click on that, and now I'm ready to select my first contour. My outside contour, it defines the outside area of what I'm going to machine. I go down here and click on the green check mark. You can see that turns a purplish red color, or pinkish red. I click on one of my inside contours, and I click again to define that, and I click on another inside contour, and I click on the green again, and then I click the green check one more time, and it brings up my what we call feeds and speeds menu. All right, here's the deal. My total depth, that's how far I'm going to go down in the piece. You need to set that to a negative value because you're going down into the piece. You're at 0 on the top, you're going down negative, in this case, 0.125, which is 1/8 of an inch. My total depth, or excuse me, my ZT is the change in depth with each pass. I'm going to make that 0.125. That's an absolute value, obviously. It's positive. That should mean I make this in one pass. 0.01 is my return. When I come up, I'm going to make that 1. 0.05 is your SE. Don't need to worry much about that. This is going to stay at 0. F of T is the vertical feed rate down. We're going to set that at 4. F of F is the horizontal feed rate going around left, right, forward, back. I'm going to make that at 20. And then your spindle speed, 1600. That's how fast the spindle actually spins. So what's going to happen is when I click OK, it's going to show me what's called the tool paths. So these numbers are available for you from your instructor if you don't remember them. Of course, you can pause this video and get them from there. But you click OK, and then it shows us the tool path. Okay, now here's the, of course we want to save this. Okay, so you just go through and save it. I'm going to save as. Make sure that you save this in your Z drive. I have a tech folder already created. Actually, I have a ton of them, so you would select your tech folder. I have CNC folder within that. You got to know where you're saving it for sure. Okay. I'm just going to give it a little quick name. You can only give it short file names, by the way. And then once that's saved up, I can go ahead over to my 3D view here, and I open the 3D window and hit start, and it's going to show me a really nice representation, a 3D representation of how this thing's going to look. And that looks exactly like I expected. You can see it traces the toolpath here. It looks good. I can change the setup view. I can click this one to see what it looks like from the top, and I've got a nice look at that from the top. Okay, and the reason we do that, of course, is we want to look for any surprises. We want to make sure that nothing happens to this that's out of the ordinary. So, for instance, if this end mill went all the way down here or all the way off to the side somewhere, we clearly made some kind of programming error. So that is how you set your CAM functions for pocket milling with islands.